So, Marlon and LaShonda Moore went on Oprah's network to show America what a great couple they looked like. Then they turned around and stole $30 million from 10,000 people during COVID. They called it blessings in no time, promised 800% returns on $1,400. And for a while, people believed them. By June 2026, a federal judge gave them both 40 years, each. Their names were everywhere in Frisco, Texas back in 2020. Marlon, 39, went by DJ Sap on social media. LaShonda was the reality show, on OWN called Family or Fiance, the kind of couples show where people talk about love and loyalty in front of cameras. And that's exactly the image they needed. A couple you could trust, a couple that looked like they had it together. If you saw them on TV, you'd think they were doing fine. Nice house in the suburbs of Dallas, good energy, the whole package. The pandemic hit in March 2020. Businesses closed, jobs vanished. Millions of people, especially in black communities, found themselves staring at empty bank accounts and wondering how they were going to make rent. Government relief checks were slow. Unemployment offices were crashing. People were scared. And Marlon and LaShonda saw all of that fear and turned it into a business plan. By June 2020, they launched Blessings in no time. BINT for short. They pitched it as an invitation-only altruistic community. That's the phrase they used. Not investment, just a community, a blessing circle. You put in $1,400 and the universe paid you back $11,200, 800% return. All you had to do was believe and invite your friends. I mean, if you're hearing that and thinking it sounds like a textbook pyramid scheme, congratulations. You're smarter than 10,000 people who handed over their money during the worst financial crisis in a generation. And I don't say that to be cruel to the victims. I say it because Marlon and LaShonda were very, very good at making this sound real. They used something called playing boards. 4 levels: fire, wind, earth, and water. New members came in at fire. You paid your $1,400 and sat at the bottom of a board with 7 other people at the same level. Above you were the wind players, above them earth, and at the very top, 1 single water player. When all 8 fire spots filled up, the board split. The water player at the top collected the $11,200 and cycled off. Everyone else moved up 1 level. Then you needed 8 more fire recruits to fill the new boards. That's it. That's the entire model. The person at the top gets paid, but only when fresh money comes in from the bottom. No product, no service, no business generating any revenue, just new recruits, funding the payouts to old recruits. The second recruitment slows down, the whole thing collapses. Every pyramid scheme in history works this way. Every single one. But Marlon and LaShonda had something that most pyramid operators throughout history never had. They had COVID lockdowns, and they had the internet. During 2020 and into 2021, when nobody could leave their houses, Marlon and LaShonda ran weekly livestream broadcasts. Every week, like clockwork. They'd go live on social media, talk about blessings, talk about financial freedom, show testimonials from people who'd hit their water payouts, and because everyone was stuck at home, scrolling their phones with nowhere to go and nothing to do, the audience was massive. People tuned in from across the country. Texas, Georgia, California, New York. BINT went nationwide through a webcam in a suburban house in Frisco. The live streams were the engine. Marlon would get on camera with that DJ ASAP energy, hype people up, and then bring on members who'd just gotten their water payout. They'd be celebrating on screen, talking about how they just received $11,000 for doing nothing but believing in the community. And if you were sitting at home, broke, stressed, watching your savings drain, and you saw someone just like you holding up their phone, showing a cash transfer for 11 grand, you'd listen. That's not a sales pitch. That's social proof delivered directly to your living room during the scariest year of your life. And they didn't target random strangers. They targeted their own communities, black families, church groups, friend circles, people who trusted each other. The invitation-only angle was genius because it made victims feel special. Like they'd been chosen, like this was something exclusive, not something anyone could Google. You find BINT through an ad. Someone you love told you about it. Your cousin, your pastor, your best friend from college. That's how it spread so fast. And that's why people believed it. If you ask me, that's the cruelest part of the whole thing. Marlon and LaShonda weaponized trust. They didn't just steal from people. They turned people into tools that stole from their own families. Every person who recruited a friend into BINT was unknowingly pulling their friend into a losing position. And the friend who got pulled in? They recruited their sister, who recruited her coworker. The damage rippled through entire social networks. Family reunions got awkward. Church groups fractured. Friendships ended. Not because people were greedy, but because they trusted the wrong person, who trusted the wrong person, who trusted Marlon and LaShonda. 10,000 victims lost a combined $30 million in roughly 12 months. Now, BINT didn't last long. The math never does. By mid-2021, the boards weren't filling anymore. People at the fire level were stuck. They'd paid their $1,400, recruited everyone they knew, and nobody was moving up. The water payouts dried up, and when the payouts stopped, the questions start. People went from excited to confused to angry in a matter of weeks. Social media posts flipped from testimonials to accusations. Former members started going public about losing their money. Some of these people had put in their last $1,400. Rent money, grocery money, stimulus checks that were supposed to keep the lights on. Marlon and LaShonda tried to keep the machine running. They kept doing live streams, kept talking about blessings, kept telling people to be patient. But patience doesn't fill empty boards. And it doesn't refund the people at the bottom who never got paid. The scheme was collapsing under its own math, and no amount of DJ ASAP energy was going to fix that. Federal investigators were already watching. The FBI and postal inspectors had been tracking BINT's online activity for months. The live streams, the payment flows, the recruitment patterns. When the scheme collapsed, they had a mountain of digital evidence sitting right there in the open. Every live stream was recorded, every payment's traceable, every playing board was documented. Marlon and LaShonda had built the prosecution's case for them, on camera, every single week. If you've been watching this and want more stories like these, hit subscribe. New ones drop regularly. Marlon and LaShonda were indicted on federal charges of conspiracy, wire fraud, and money laundering. The kind of charges that stack up fast when you've moved $30 million through digital payment platforms with 10,000 witnesses who are very eager to talk to the FBI. The trial happened in the federal courthouse in Sherman, Texas, before Judge Amos Mazant. And it did not go well for the Moores. Prosecutors laid out the playing board structure, played clips from the live streams where Marlon and LaShonda promised 800% returns, showed the money trails, and brought in witness after witness who described paying $1,400 and getting nothing back. Some of those witnesses talked about losing their homes, about marriages falling apart because of the money they put in, about the shame of having recruited their own family members into a fraud they didn't know was a fraud. The defense argued that BINT was a legitimate gifting community, that participants understood the risks, that nobody was forced to join. The jury sat through it all and deliberated. They came back in January 2026. Guilty on all counts, both of them. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, money laundering, the full list. Marlon and LaShonda Moore, the reality TV couple from Frisco, convicted of running a $30 million pyramid scheme out of their living room. Then came sentencing. Judge Mazant handed both Marlon and LaShonda Moore 40 years in federal prison, 480 months each, plus $4.3 million in restitution. And I want to sit with that number for a second. 40 years. That is the kind of sentence you see for violent offenders, for armed robbery, for drug trafficking operations that span decades. Marlon and LaShonda got 40 years for running a pyramid scheme on Facebook Live during a pandemic. And look, 40 years is a staggering number. But think about what they did. They targeted people who were already broke, people who had lost jobs because of COVID, people who were desperate and afraid. And they looked those people in the eye on camera, week after week, and told them to hand over $1,400 they couldn't afford to lose. They wrapped it in the language of blessings and community. They dressed it up with the TV appearance, the DJ brand, the faith-based framing, and they collected $30 million, while 10,000 families fell deeper into a financial hole they were already drowning in. I guess you could argue the sentence is harsh. 40 years is a long time, but the judge saw 10,000 victims. He saw a scheme designed to exploit a pandemic. He saw two people who used their public image to build credibility, and then used that credibility to drain communities that were already suffering. And he decided 40 years was the appropriate response. The $4.3 million in restitution sounds nice on paper, but $30 million went missing. 4.3 doesn't cover a third of that. And restitution orders in federal fraud cases have a terrible collection rate. The money is almost always gone, spent on the lifestyle that made the scam look real in the first place. The playing boards had 4 levels: fire, wind, earth, water. Pretty names for an ugly machine. Fire was where you burned your money. Water was where Marlon and LaShonda cashed out, and the 10,000 people stuck in between? They were just fuel. $30 million taken from 10,000 victims, and 40 years each to pay for it. And all of it started with a couple on a reality TV show saying the word blessings until people stopped asking questions. If you want more stories like this, they're on the channel.